understand everything that's been said this afternoon, I really do. And I know we're all sincere about seeing our community grow and improve. But from what I see, I think the meetings that we need to be talking about is the meetings of taking action. I mean, I've heard a couple of people say there's a disconnect with the young community. Some people are on this, or Facebook, some people are on this and that. I mean, I know for a fact you can link all of those social sites at one time. I can go to Facebook and be over Twitter, LinkedIn, I mean, all at the same time, with the same idea. The organization is what I think should be the most critical part of getting something done. It's been my experience that people do not react or take anything seriously unless you show that you have value. And as long as we have all these different organizations coming together to have meetings, but we're not taking action, there's no value. There's no value, nothing's going to get done. We've got a vehicle that has national value, and we don't have to be, and I'm not saying that the NAACP is the vehicle to be in because I'm a part of it or other people are members of it. I'm saying that that's an established organization, national, statewide. You come into our city, if you spent time building that organization up with not just membership, I'm talking about the people that run all the different organizations in Patterson. If they were inside of one organization, there's power there. There's political power there, there's economic power there, and I'm not going to say infighting, I'm going to say the challenging of different personalities. The challenging of different personalities can always be worked out inside an organization where no one else outside has to see that. Right. Because when people look outside in and don't see strife going on, I mean, there's communities, there's people out there looking at us right now saying, don't worry about that. Because the meeting they're having today, they had 10 years ago. The meeting that they have today, they're going to have that same meeting 20 years from now, 10 years from now. Because our culture dictates that that's how we're going to act. We're not focusing on value more than anything else. Racism, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I understand there's racism, but I don't look at it as racism. Because I figured if there were no racism, there'd be something else that somebody not like me before. So I just go past racism. I know who I'm dealing with. I know who I'm dealing with. But if I give that person value, guess what? They still do business with me. Go figure that.
That's true.
Yeah, so when we have these types of meetings, we should be it's my opinion, we should be thinking about getting together and putting an organization through that just speaks as one voice. Because now everybody politically, economically, they'll look at that and they'll go, well, we're not going to be able to get our agenda through if we're not working with this organization. And because we all affect so many people. You know, the head of the brothers affects a lot of people. Masons, they affect a lot of people. Pastors, they affect a lot of people. And that's the kind of thinking that we should start doing because value pays off. I mean, it just pays off. If you give value to young people, they will move forward in a direction because they believe in what you're doing. I saw a recent website of someone in an organization where the young men come through that organization with some type of a tie. You have to wear a tie all the time as a show of how you are as a man. I saw a website where it was nothing but African American brothers, businessmen, you know, professionals, just brothers, all looking exactly the same. And that was a site that I identified with immediately, and I didn't even know what they were about. But the fact of what they showed, I mean, that's how I think we should start thinking. That's just my opinion. That's how I think we should start thinking because people pay attention to you and they'll listen to your agenda if what you've got going on represents value in the community.
Part of our problem is that we forgot who we are and the heritage and the history of us as a people in this country. When you look at the evolution or the migration of us as a people, our people coming from the South and coming out of that Jim Crow era, coming out of the racial discrimination, I think the greatest desire and prayers for our parents and our grandparents' generation that we would have a better life, that we would get the education that we needed, because that's what would give us a better day. Most of us who were fortunate enough to go to college and to get some education, I think that the generational gap is that we didn't continue in the vein to encourage our children and our children's children. When you look at the generation of our children, 30s, 20s, even some early 40s, the things that was demanded of us, we did not pass on to our children. There's a lack of God consciousness. On Sunday morning, we got up, it was mandatory that we go to church. It was mandatory that we have a sense of God. If you embraced the Islamic faith, you went to the mosque on Friday. And I think as a result of that, not carrying on the traditions of us as a people, it also has injected a decline of the moral fiber of our community. These children don't have a sense of value, don't have a sense of life. You asked Chief Lovely about the recidivism. In part, it is due to the system, the way the system is designed. Once you're in the system, for instance, there's a great disparity when you look at the different types of convictions. And you can attest to this, Chief Lovely. If you are convicted of a drug, crime, the way the law is 4 strikes against you. You can't vote, you can't live in public housing, you can't receive financial assistance, and you cannot receive any type of monies for education. So when a person comes out, what do? In our community, we have no jobs, we have no companies, we have nothing that we can really look to in regards to the economy of our own community. Us that are 50 and over, if you grew up in this town, when we grew up in Patterson, the primary Latino ethnic group was Puerto Ricans. Now, we laughed at that. I grew up in 12th Avenue, 22nd, went to school 13, did all of that. And we used to laugh at certain families, because just to say, we cracked on it, we'd say they take shifts to go to sleep. You'd have 20 in a 3-room apartment. But we didn't understand that it was just a matter of time. We were ignorant of the fact, that they were working a plan. When I left in 73 to go into the military and came back late 76, most of those Jewish merchants that were on Broadway, that was on 12th Avenue, was on 11th Avenue and 10th Avenue, once they did the flight, I just automatically thought that it would be us that would assume those positions. It wasn't us. It wasn't even the Puerto Ricans. Most of them are of Dominican descent, who own most of the bodegas, who own most of the businesses in our community. And we get mad at that, but where's our plan? Who's guiding us? Who's leading us? We're fragmented on any little issue. We can't support one another. So you're talking about having conversation. This is good, but I think that we need to know that out of this conversation, where are we going with this? You talk about Jamaicans, you talk about Caribbeans, you talk about the African Americans, you talk about even the Africans, the little small minority group of Africans. None of us can come together, or we have not come together to eliminate the ignorance so we can come together for the common good. If Patterson is going to be a better town, a better city, it's going to start with us in this room, and we have to become united and put aside.
Hello, my name is Robert Parchment. I'm a plumbing contractor, business owner. I've been in business for myself since 1984. I work basically in New York. I work a lot of schools, construction. When I look at our city, I began to get very upset about what's taking place here in our town. I've always worked in New York. I live on East 38th Street, Route 2080, Bloomington, New York, back home. When I look at our town, I think the infrastructure is here to rebuild this city and make it much larger than what it was. I look at the city's budget, I look at the Board of Education's budget, well, last year was 500 million or for the Board of Education or higher. The city's budget, the garbage contract is not $9 million. I'm looking at all these different contracts, and then I'm looking at how these contracts are being awarded at the city council meeting, and no one there represents us. I believe the key to change is the way when my family came here. My father is from Jamaica, my mother is from the U.S. My father was a carpenter, my mother was a seamster. How they made changes and was able to buy their house in the early 70s is because they had a trade and they were able to generate income. And that empowered them to empower their children. I think we've gotten away from that. We've been distracted, or we're running around like hamsters in a wheel, not accomplishing anything. I think we need to focus on our cities like Patterson, Newark, Detroit. I just wish we as black people, whatever skills, whatever profession that we have, if we could just come together on a couple of agendas. With that bond that just passed, there should have been some things in there that assured that we work the community, to assure jobs and contract opportunities. Any other city, a Hispanic company or a black company is not going to Fairlawn and get a major contract. It's just not going to happen, low bidder or not. It's not going to happen. You're not going to go to Inglewood's Cliffs. So I believe the change should be in job opportunities and contract opportunities, services. We need to gain control of the money in our town and make it work for us. We as black people, what does that mean? We have to start to organize to vote. We have to go into the communities that we don't even want to go to. We pulled up here, and some of the guys that's sitting at the park, I was like, yo, if I don't have my 9mm, there's no way I'm getting out of my car, walking down that street. That's crazy. It shouldn't be that way. But if it starts with the church and other churches all banding together and other organizations banding together to try to bring some change and to vote the same way each time, I think we can make change here. We have the infrastructure here, we have the elder wisdom here, we have young people here, and we can bring change. And I want to be a part of that. I brought my son for the sole purpose so he can hear and see what's going on. Some of the conversations we had this morning, I said, you ride down Broadway in Manhattan and where Malcolm X was assassinated, most black people don't even know the building. They ride by it all the time. They have no idea that's where Malcolm X was assassinated. There's properties, we were just riding down Graham Avenue, I was showing them buildings and businesses that were there that we would go to. Joe's Liquor Store was on Graham Avenue. It was a liquor store, but it was a black-owned business, and he was the only one. This deli that was there. It's just so many things that we have lost, but I believe collectively, if we can come together, put away the differences, discuss the problems in private, like Mr. Gaines said, and now's the time. It's where we watch, we go to the city council meetings, we see what happens, we see how other organizations and people have mounted together to push their own agenda. The closing of the stores, it was the Dominicans on one side, and it was the black community on the other side. Dominicans are making the money, and a lot of the store owners, they don't live here, so they don't care. Their kids aren't in our school, they're not in the neighborhood, and who says people on 10th Avenue who live in those apartments over all that madness is not entitled to a decent life? And 12 o'clock to close the store, everybody's fussing. I mean, what could you possibly do if it doesn't shut down till 1 o'clock? What are you going to do the next day? What kind of life could you have? What are your children experiencing? So we have to come together collectively, put down our differences, what everyone can bring to the table, any skill set, business, experience, and just do it organized and bring change. And if it has to be at one neighborhood at a time and bring everything together, then so be it. But we need to start moving the ball. We need to start moving the ball now. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm looking to support qualified individuals. I'm tired of us going with the fact that they're black and they're popular. I'm not going to be a part of that. I don't mean to speak out against my people, but if you're not in the right place and you don't have the qualifications, we need to be able to speak out to those individuals and say, you just don't have those qualifications. We're not going to support you. Meanwhile, you're getting in the way of another good candidate that is capable. We got to stop going with the status quo, and I just see that over and over again. A lot of us are in positions where there's board seats available, council people that have other seats on the boards, on municipal boards. Why haven't we been chosen to be on those boards? We gotta start pulling each other up. Any opportunity where we can sit, we should be there. We gotta go back to the old way, we gotta start coming back into the church and demanding the accountability and leadership. The problem is our community does not have a head. It's a bunch of people, a bunch of body, but we gotta put a head to this. We gotta get behind one person, and I know we keep saying that's impossible, but we are gonna have to get down to 1 or 2 people that are gonna call the reins. We can't have everybody shooting off here and there. If you look at the Latino community, you know who the heads are. There's 2 of them. And when he says go, they go. That's how we gotta get. You know, you say one person can't do it all, but Malcolm was one person. Martin was one person. Gandhi was one person. It takes one person with good leadership to lead. We gotta become more followers and good warriors, soldiers. We gotta level the playing field, and we gotta get that one voice out in front. We gotta start taking every opportunity to teach our children and get them in position. And we got to learn to support one another. When we have something, show up. Just show up. We don't look serious enough. We got to start backing each other. So I'm here. I'm hoping that this is not going to be another meeting. Because again, I said I'm not about a bunch of meetings. We're actually going to move forward, come up with a plan, put it in place, and let's stick to it. We need to form solidarity. I agree
It's
with
safe to say, a lot of you may disagree, but truth hurts. We've become our biggest enemy. Point blank. Like, from the adults, you were asking earlier, what are we doing wrong? And you already addressed the issue. You have certain groups of African American adults who don't speak to others for whatever reason. I don't want to talk to that group. And it trickles down on us. Because now, due to the distant and lack of communication amongst our elders, and I'm not going to say we as me because my mother, like, I got whippings when I was little if I disrespected her. So that wasn't a problem in my household, but for other kids don't receive that. And now that we've become our biggest enemy, we're constantly going back and forth. So now the new generation, they have no respect. Not all of them, most of them. They don't need to respect their parents because they see their parents disrespecting other people. Because kids hear and see everything. And what they learn, the type of person they become, reflects the type of household that they live in and the type of community that they live in. Because I've lived on both sides of the city. Former councilman, current council person. 2 different types of people. 2 different types of community. 2 different cultures. Back in the day, if I disrespect my mom, any adult in this room, I was gonna get it. Nowadays, you can get a child off the street and they'll come in and curse, except for him, every single person in your house. And even with the churches, I hate to say this, but a lot of the African American churches in this city are not welcoming to everyone. And by everyone, I mean every type of African American. They're not welcoming. And when a person seeks that family, and they seek faith-based because they're here to seek faith-based, and they're rejected, you cut the ties of trust right then and there. And then when you put a group together and you say you need to trust faith-based, what about the people who already have? What do you say to them?
And I think that one way she is absolutely right. We did fell apart as a Black community. A lot of us do not know our roots. And that's one way that we can probably fix things is teaching our youth about our roots. Because a lot of we don't know about our history, about slavery, how this country was built upon Black people, African Americans as ourselves. So that's one way that we can start by is communicating with our youth, is teaching them. You know, if I had to sit down and teach someone, I will actually do it. I do that every day. You know, as a nurse, I teach someone something new every single day. Another way is through once again, it is through Facebook, but just like Matt said, when the postings go down, what happens? No one shows up. So that takes responsibility on ourselves that we have to go out there and make them show up. That's the only way we can bring them here, is we make them show up. And I know that some people are gonna be like, oh, you know, I can't come, I have this to do, I have that to do. But it's always, if we have something to do every weekend with our youth, I think that they would actually show up, something fun, something excitement, bring excitement and education in the part of it too. 'Cause that's how a lot of people learn. It's when fun and excitement and education is a part of something.
Let me ask you this question. What do you see as a young person, the older black leaders, what are we doing wrong? No, feel free to answer the question.
I'd like to tell you a short story. I dated a young man who I met his mother's in the 40s. And she didn't know anything about, she knew about slavery and stuff like that, but you know what she said to me? That's the past, it don't affect me now. It still affects me every day in my job, with my education, when I'm trying to go to school, it affects me every day. It's comments like that that shut us down. We don't have older people that's not educated on what had happened, or trying to forget what had happened, and it doesn't exist. It still exists. It's always going to exist.
What do they believe we're lacking what we need to do from a youth perspective?
All right. Well, I'm still young. So I'm still young, so I will address that too. You're in a church.
But go ahead. I know we're supposed to be a little bit serious, but you have been young the last year. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that we have not held our own accountable. We have let too many things go by, unsaid, unspoken, unchallenged. And it's time that we recognize that we, collectively, young and old, hold our folk accountable. You can't continue to think that things are going to get better by themselves. You can't continue to think that the past is the past and we're here in the future, in the present going forward, without knowing that the past has affected us and continues to affect us, being the descendants of slaves and still under the power of former slave masters' descendants as well. You know, it's not that long ago, you know, that slavery ended. We're still new in this country in terms of our level of empowerment, and we don't fight enough. We need a voice. We need to continue to raise that voice and challenge things. I mean, people walk around like they're scared. What are you scared of? Somebody not gonna like you? What I'm saying is we have to become more vocal. We have to be more challenging, and it starts with challenging our own first. How are you gonna ask somebody else to do something for you if you're not asking your own to do for you? You're sitting in these positions of power and not doing anything. That's my problem. And I think that when you bring it out there and you talk about it, it's not a personal attack on anybody. It's the situation as it's presented. We have positions from which we can make a difference, and we're not doing that. Things need to be said and done on a daily basis.
The circumstances and the conditions that's put in our community. And I believe, as Mr. Rucker said, we're all making conscious efforts to bring about change, but it's not connected. It's not connected. And as you can see, I went to the Dominican parade. I know a few of the people here was there. And I highlight that because they have somehow formed a network where everybody gets contacted. Whether you're great-grandma or the 10-year-old that's riding around on his scooter, everybody knows that the Dominican parade's on this date, and flags and everything's there, and people say, oh, they made a mess of the city, and they did this, they did that, but to show, when you see it for yourself, the pride, and the support and the outpour, it shapes the community. With that said, I believe that we need commitment. I think that the city of Patterson needs commitment. We need to find a way to show the youth that we're committed. They see us doing things and they see us involved, but I feel like there's a lack of commitment where after the cameras go off, after the Facebook posts are posted, who's there? After the big council meeting, who's there on a day-to-day basis impacting the lives of these people? When I was growing up, I had Mike Walker. He's no longer here, God rest his soul. I had Coach Bulldog. I had Mr. Tyson. I had a number of people involved in the community, and they were committed day in and day out. And you saw them, their presence was felt. And I think that along with grassroots, I think that along with the faith base, and some of our elected officials, we got to come together as we are here today, show the commitment, and also find a way to just implement some things that are day to day. It's hard, it's going to be difficult, but we gotta make the decision to make those changes now. So I'm here in support, and I think we can do it.
Let me start by saying that I recognize a few things. That our black community is not a monolithic group of people. We're all different in some ways. But the ways in which we are different does not make us necessarily apart from each other. We have to develop new ways, new strategies to address our situation. First of all, we learn to identify ourselves by our nationality. Yes, I was born in Jamaica, and that became the overarching thing about my person. Okay, I went to this university, and that becomes the overarching thing about who I am. Yes, I belong to this church, and it becomes the overarching thing that I am. But that's not the real purpose. There is something on Facebook that says you unfriend somebody. I think we need, as a community, to unlearn some of the things that we have learned over these many years. We need to develop an attitude. We are not going to support mediocrity. We are not going to support mediocrity. We are not going to support a political party because we are registered in that political party. We need to say, I'm going to support a person based on the person's ability to deliver, the person's ability to understand the issues, the person's ability to dissect the problems and bring solutions to the table. Those are some of the things that we need to deal with as we develop this new approach in how we address the real issues of our community. I would like to see us be more involved in the things that really matters in our community. Education does matter. We need to have more dialogue. Decisions are made without discussions. Major decisions are made without any discussion in our community. And that have a way of coming back, boomerang, back to us and impact us in very serious ways. We need to address all of these issues. We need to have leadership that forces us to discuss the issues and bring solutions to the table and make sure that those solutions that are brought to the table are seriously looked at and executed and implemented. So my purpose here is for us to talk about the house. We know the issues. We don't need to just talk about it. We need to bring the house to the table. And I'm here, I'm committed to working with whatever group it is. You know, I want to thank you, Reverend Clayton, because I realize that a lot of our churches, a lot of our pastors are so divorced from what we do here. But from I've been in this town over 30 years, I've been in this town longer than anywhere else that I've ever been in my life. I've experienced Reverend Clayton is always there in the forefront. You know, opening his church, there sitting, he's willing to hear you on some of these vital issues that our community faces from the